Susanna, we're here for some group training. How are you?
Good. How are you, Joe?
I'm excited. I mean, this is your like playground, the deal analyzing underwriting, right?
That's right. I'm hoping we'll have time to go through the deal analyzer today. But yeah, let's just jump in. I love sharing this information with people because I want them to get to the point where they're driving around town and they see a commercial building and they go, okay, how many square feet is this? I wonder, it's probably around this price point, probably generates this much money. And, well, somebody could buy this with this much down, 25%, 30%. Oh, this one's going to take 50. It looks vacant. And
Yep,
just be
yep,
able
yep.
to just do that. I mean, that's what I do when I'm driving around town.
Exactly, exactly. Like on my presentations, I'm really sure you've seen, and maybe some of the audience. My best friend is Irv, and I think your first love is IRR.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I do. That's my thing, man. Start talking about IRR and I'm paying attention.
all right, cool. So I see more people are joining us here. Hello, hello. Let's go ahead. If you want to share your slides today, guys, we're doing deal analyzer, underwriting, kind of getting into the ins and outs of that. So if you guys have your deal analyzer, follow along, and I'll ask questions too with Susanna just to kind of prep people for how to work that analyzer to the fullest. So yeah, feel free to share, Susanna, and I'll just kind of be a fly on the wall today, maybe throw some questions here and there.
Okay, you want me to just jump straight to the analyzer?
Yeah, take it whatever way you want to flow with it today.
Yeah,
And
let's do that because that's something that I really wanted to do today anyway. So let me jump in there. Oh, there you go. It's already up. So, okay, so this is what everybody got access to, everybody who signed up. So, and this looks intimidating. It's got all of these underwriting, assumptions, return analysis, distribution, waterfalls, and loan calculator, but it's actually a lot simpler. So once we go through it. So there's a lot of data that you're getting, but anything that's in blue, for example, this LTV here at 65%, this particular deal with 65%, you can change it however you need to change it according to any deal that you're looking at, and it will make the changes for you. So if I change this to 35%, for example, well, I wouldn't change it to, let's change it to 75%, okay? So um, it will change your DCR, for example, right? So if we go to 80, see how the DCR just changed to 0.86? So anyway, so I already sized this one. So this one was going to be at 65%. But this is how simple this is to use, and it gives you so much information. It's kind of crazy. So this particular thing, this one is set currently to multifamily 194 units. Can you see that?
yep.
Okay, so I mean, it's set to one bed, one bath, but you can, this particular one has 194 two bed, two bath units, 100% two bed, two bath units. And see how these are in blue? So you
Yep.
can change these. Like if you had one bedroom, one bath units, like you can change that, let's say 23, right? And then it would change everything else. So this one is zero, one bed, one bath, and 194 two bed, two bath. So then you put your square feet in there and it's calculating for you, right? What's the mix percentage? What's the square feet? You put this in and then it gives you the total square footage for the project, 213,400. So here again, we have two blue cells. So this is input from you. So once you've got your LoopNet or CREIC listing or your OM or wherever you're getting this information from, you enter it here. And so typically you're given the T12, the trailing 12 numbers. That just means starting now or last month, going back 12 months, right? So
So could
it's,
I interrupt real quick?
yeah.
If the mix was different, like some of these apartment complexes, there's a 3-2 and a studio, how do you kind of prep for that?
Yeah, you just add it here. So where's my insert? Insert, and then you would put like a 3-2 here.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, and it's pretty, I mean, there's some Excel skills required, obviously, but this
For
is
the
a good,
most part, it's very user friendly, that looks like.
yeah. So I just want to go over these blue input things, and then I'm going to show you what it's going to spit out, right? So from the due diligence, you know what the average rent is for this one type of unit, two bed, two bath. So this one is 1,569. So it will automatically now give you the total monthly rent, total annual rent. And then here's some more cells in blue. This is your pro forma rent, pro forma, meaning that what do you think? Where should the rent be if it was at market? So we have some comps that we're listing this two bedroom, two bath unit at 1975. So again, it's going to annual monthly total is here and then annualize it over here. This is the calculation that it gives it to you per square foot. And if there's any rubs, which is basically like a bill back system for utilities, it's mostly water, it's going to go in here. But what that automatically does here is calculate this C and D column, which is your T12. That is the in-place income. All you did is enter it up here and it calculated everything for you. Here's your market rent. Here's your loss to lease, vacancy, concessions, bad debt, net rental income. It calculates the economic occupancy. The utility disbursement comes from here and the other income comes from here. So these are also things that you will enter just straight from the P&L. So now you're given the effective gross income. But this is based on current. Now the 1 year pro forma comes from here, right? You had these two blue cells here. So now it computes that here. Look at the difference between your effective gross income that's in place and what you're projecting is possible. So whether that happens in year 1 or year 2, usually, 194 units is not going to be overnight, but it gives us a very clear picture of what the upside is. And then it goes to year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. And it just assumes, here's a couple of blue cells, like what's your projected rent growth? So here we don't really do anything crazy. We just project 3% on the rent and 2% on the expense. This is your expense growth. This is your rental growth. Because your big upside, we put under here, under year 1. But the important thing, Joe, is that, and so these are the expenses that I also entered. See, they're in blue. So you're putting this straight from the P&L. So this is the only thing you have to put in. But look at this. So total operating expenses. What I did here, I didn't really project like a big growth in expense. The expenses are remaining about the same, but remember we had this big jump in income. So what did that do to the operating income? You started out at 1.8 annual and it jumped to 3.227. Most importantly, here's the calculation that everybody wants. It's your cap rate. So this can be purchased at a 4.8% cap rate, which doesn't seem like it's that great a deal, right? Because interest rates are hovering around 6%. But once you put in your market rents, look at this, it jumps to 8.3% cap rate. So these are the types of things, especially for those students that are looking, how do I add value? Where's my forced appreciation? It's right here. Even though you're buying at 4.8, you might think to yourself, well, that's nothing to write home about. But if you have current comps at the bumped up rents that immediately translate to 8.3% cap rate, well, you haven't really changed the expenses at all. Even though these expenses were 45% of your rental income, you're holding them steady. You're just bumping the income, and look what happens to the cap rate.
So could
So
I add something real quick?
yeah, go for it.
This is the VIP group. So you guys are getting like the sweet secret sauces here. This is an analyzer sheet, okay? When you have your due diligence period, your 60-day, 90-day, or however long, You also want to do a feasibility report or a market rent survey. And that's going to tell you exactly if you're below market rents and will justify you upping the rents on the sheet. So make sure you do a feasibility study, market rent survey.
That's exactly right. So this gives you your big jump, right? Because those rents are not up to market. But then from here, what you see, again, we're looking at the cap rate and then at operating income. With your 3% increases, this is why it pays to buy and hold. Because from here, you're basically doing nothing, right? You're just holding steady and you're increasing from 8.3 to 9.6. So, and so now you have kind of a picture of what that property is going to look like for the next 5 years. Now here on the return analysis, you can figure out how much money you'd make if you sold at any point in time, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. Look at this. It gives you your net operating income, which it's fed through the underwriting tab, your annual debt service, right? And it's going to go up a little bit because you've got taxes and insurance and in year 2 because you're refinancing in year 2. Your debt service coverage ratio. This computes your free cash flow. How much cash flow are you generating? Your cash on cash return, all of the items that we went through the analyzer. Remember, we did it kind of painstaking formulas, but this free analyzer spreadsheet that's included and given to everybody that joins is computing all this for you. But here's why everybody gets excited. So assuming we're going to exit at 5.75 cap rate, which is roughly about the market cap rate currently for that area, you have commissions that you have to deduct. But here's your exit value. Look, you bought it for 38, 39 million. You're exiting at 56 million. If you sell in year 2, you're exiting for 59. Year 3, you're exiting for 60. 62, 64. So you decide at what point do you want to sell, either for your own profit or for the profit of your investors. So now here, you're going to have commissions, right? About 4%. Agents need to get paid. Loan balance is going to get deducted from that sales price. Your initial equity investment, which is your down payment. And here's your profit. So you invested here, for example, 14 million and your profit is 13. So that's almost double. And it carries it through all the years here. So this formula here calculates your return on investment and then your annualized ROI. Now here's my favorite, your IRR calculations, right? So if you sell in year 1, what's your IRR, year 2, year 3, and so on and so forth. And this, it gives you these numbers right here, your gross internal rate of return. So how easy it is then, Joe, for you to make a decision at what point in your holding period do you want to sell when you have this in front of you?
Yeah, so these double digit returns, guys, is that internal rate of return. These numbers are very, very juicy. When you look at or talk to other like syndicators, they're probably happy with a 15% IRR, anything like that. So when you start to play with these numbers, you're going to start to make your own rules of thumb or set up your buy criteria. And so, I mean, for me, these are juicy enough, Susanna, that I would totally jump on this deal.
They are juicy, and they're actually, these are real numbers, believe it or not. One thing that's important to mention here, this is gross IRR. So let's go and figure out what's the net IRR is, right? So here we have this tab that goes through assumptions. So this tells you what the purchase price is, your loan amount, your down payment. And then this is meant to be kind of all inclusive. You can analyze a deal just for yourself or for your buyer or for your client, but also for a syndicator. So if you were not a syndicator, you would just delete this acquisition fee and just make it 0, right? But if there is an acquisition fee, as most syndicators get one, you can make it 1, 2, or 3, or whatever it is. 2 is probably pretty standard. Guarantee fee, if there is one, if it's a non-recourse loan, there wouldn't be one. But again, you can change these very easily. You can just put 0 because these are in blue. Also, a note to everybody, you guys, don't change anything that's not in blue because it's going to mess up your formulas. So here are your fees that you can enter. You would enter your reserves here if you had put something in there. Your CapEx budget would go in here. And here it kind of totals it up for you, right? So you're getting, I deleted the guarantor fee, so now we're at 780,000. So it adds that to your total equity required to purchase it. Now down here, I separated this in the case of a syndicator to limited partner and general partner. So limited partner coming in with 90, you can make this 95, you can make it to 96, whatever you want. Again, it's in blue. But this is set to kind of standard split. So your investors will come in with 90% or 12,987,000. And you as the sponsor coming in with 10% at 1.43. Again, you can change it to 95.5 or however you want to split it.
And just make sure, guys, it adds up to 100%. So that's really the number you're looking for.
Exactly. So now that we have these assumptions, let's see what happens to our IRR. So this is your distribution. Once you sell the property, you can decide when. I think I have this set to 3 years, although I would encourage everybody to do it over 5. So again, it's just kind of summarizes. This is how much your investors came in with. At 13 million, roughly, you came in at 1.4. Here it breaks down the percentage for you. And the typical split is 80-20. So this is the 20% promote that the syndicator would get. And down here, it will show you your totals. So the total amount that's going to the limited partners, the investors, is 24 million. And the total amount returned to your general partners or your sponsors is 2.69. Let's call it 2.7. But look at this. This is the juicy part, right? As a syndicator, you're getting a 20% carry, basically a bonus for putting that deal together. So on top of the 2.7 million that the sponsors are getting, on top of that, they're getting another 6.8 million. Now, if this doesn't make you jump out of your chair, Joe, what will?
Absolutely. That's more than some people earn in a lifetime, guys. So think about that. You're making whatever, let's just say 6 figures, 100,000 per year. That is in one deal, and this is exactly why we say that, like, this is why you want to be in commercial real estate, because this is where more or most millionaires are created. On one deal, you're a multimillionaire.
Right, if you can pull it off, but that's why we're all learning, right? We're all learning how to do this. So here's my IRR calculation broken down in line 45 to limited partner and general partner. So again, your initial investment, right? Your sponsors put in roughly 13, you put in 1.4. Here's your exit year 1. Sorry, your profit, your cash flow. Your cash flow / profit for year 2, 1.465. And then year 3, we're projecting an exit. Remember, we looked at what it would sell for. And you would have roughly $26 million at the end of year 3. So here is your internal rate of return for the investors. So this is still very juicy, right? You typically don't need to shoot this high, like as long as you're in the 20s, because you kind of want to target between 15 and 18%. But on your projection, so that means you kind of want to be in the 20s. So here I'm actually, a couple of digits into the 30s. But this is a deal that most investors would likely want to do. Now, if you look here, here's the other thing that we talked about in training. It's your equity multiple, right? You want to be at or close to 2. So that means how quickly are you doubling the money you put in? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So this is your calculation for your limited partner, and over here it's for the sponsor. So for the sponsor, the equity multiple is 6.7. So in 3 years, you did 6.7 times the initial funds that you put in. And the reason why it's so much higher is because you get that 20% premium carry.
So when somebody's looking at the sheet, they're looking
Mhm.
at several tabs on the bottom. Where should they go? From left to right? They get this OM from a commercial broker or what have
Yep.
you. Where do they start exactly? On number one?
Start on the one. I just went through this real quick because I wanted to have everybody kind of understand the overview and what this spreadsheet does, first of all. And I mean, we can spend a lot of time on, where all this is coming from. But like I said, whatever is in blue is what you're entering, and you're entering it, especially on the underwriting tab, straight from the due diligence that you have received from the seller. And you can kind of play with this too a little bit, right? So in this first column, this is your T12. So these are actuals. You want to literally just like cut and paste from the P&L or the T12 income statement that you've received. But on this second one, this is your pro forma, remember? This is your pro forma. So now you can play with this and you can actually project on how you would run that building. Now it needs to obviously make sense, especially when it comes to things like utilities. I mean, these are like historical expenses that are likely going to carry forward at, some minor increase, like, for example, here, property management. So the current property management charge is 2%, but I believe that 3% is kind of more feasible for a prospective buyer. And you may still be able to get it at 2, but I can almost guarantee you that your lender is still going to underwrite it at 3%. But if
So,
you go
So a
ahead.
couple of things, guys. This is why it's very, very important during the challenge. I mentioned about getting like flashcards because somebody probably in the crowd might not even remember what pro forma is. So it's projected pretend. Okay. You're usually going to get that on an offering memorandum. The listing agent wants to sell it, so they're going to talk in pro forma. You want to get the actuals. Okay. So you might sign a non-disclosure agreement to get the actuals first. So just remember all these words and phrases. We're going to go over and over and over again. Also, make sure this might be common sense, maybe not to some. Make a backup copy because if you happen to screw up some of the numbers, you type in the black versus the blue, you'll have a backup. Okay, so just remember that, guys. And again, we're going to go over this over and over. You may not get it this time, but you'll get it a second, third, fourth, or fifth time. But we're going to keep doing this over and over, guys.
Yeah, and we can look at actual deals. So this is an actual deal that I have already prepared, and that's what everybody got. But we can just jump on LoopNet and see what's available there. We can do this also for other property types, and we just go in and change all the blue numbers to what the actual is and where we think it's going to land. So to your question, yes, I start on the first tab, which is your underwriting tab, and that is going to answer most of your questions. It's going to give you your effective gross income. It's going to give you the all important net operating income. And these two numbers are what drives a lot of your other formulas. You need the net operating income to compute your cap rate, for example, right? It does it automatically here. We could all do it by hand, but once we start looking at deals, we want to kind of automate things and be able to refer back to it and also project it for the next 5 years or however long you're planning on holding the property. So start on this tab, then you go to your assumptions tabs, which is the one right next to it. And here's where you put in your purchase price. Actually, the purchase price is on the underwriting tab right on top because it's not in blue. Right here, purchase price.
Mm-hmm.
And then the senior loan is also coming from your previous tab, your underwriting, right? Your purchase price, and then your LTV. You put in your LTV, and that's what calculates the loan amount. And here you have your interest rate, right? That's how you compute the debt service, your amortization. If there's any interest only, you can also put that here. And then your term is typically 5 years. So on your assumptions, it's going to summarize this and where you're going to enter in some input is this a syndicated deal? Are there any acquisition fees, guarantee fees? Are there any reserves? Right? Let's make it at, let's say 30%. It's going to compute everything for you. Your CapEx, let's make it back to 0. If you had a CapEx budget of, let's say, I don't know, 50,000 is kind of low for this deal. This is your CapEx, but it's not a fee. That's why it's not including it here. But you play with it on this side. And now it's going to calculate everything for you based on the split of 90-10. If, as a sponsor, let's say you're putting in 50% of the down payment, you can change this to 50 and change the GP equity to 50. Right? So it calculates it for you and carries it through to your distribution waterfall. Look what happened to your distribution. See, it went down from 69 something percent to 50%, and your equity multiple went from 6.7 to 2.9. So you can play around with it however you want to structure your deal. That's what most people are kind of afraid. They're like, well, what should be my split? That's entirely up to you. I've done deals where it was 90-10. I've done deals where the sponsor didn't have any money in it. Typically, some, investors are going to want to know that you're putting your own money in it, typically between 5 and 10%. But I've personally done deals where I didn't have any money in it.
Yeah,
So
and with that said, guys, I've done the same. So like if somebody who is a potential limited partner or investor in your acquisition will ask you, you could say, hey, you know what? I actually have money tied up in the deal or allocated for the deal. I do have to do the good faith deposit. I also have to perform inspections. I have to hire an appraiser. Environmental impacts report company, and so you will have money in the deal. You could say that, but if you have another party doing that as well, it's all about how confident you are with the deal, and definitely say it with confidence because the more you second guess yourself or the project, it's going to be harder for them to invest in your deal.
exactly. And that's why you need to know things like IRR. So let's say, so this is a very large deal, right? So most people are not going to start here. But when you're doing large deals, now you have the option of maybe shopping for preferred equity to help you with the down payment instead of coming in with investors. The first thing they're going to say, what's the IRR? Because they typically want an IRR that starts with a 2 or either high teens or between 20 and 25% is not really that unusual. So you need to know your numbers and your terminology because when you have these people on the phone that are potentially going to provide you that assistance with the down payment, they're going to go, okay, well, we need an IRR of 22.5%. Well, is there room, right? Is there room for that? Go in your distribution waterfall and there you go. It is. And you're going to be able to either send them this spreadsheet or share this information with them.
And just remember also, guys, I'll put myself as your potential investor. I want to know how soon am I going to get my money back and how much of a return will I get on my money? Okay, so just remember that. Soon as you could answer those questions when talking to a potential investor, I'm interested. So, and another thing, this is part of script training as well. Always, always, always under promise, over deliver. So if you're thinking you're going to exit in 1 to 3 years, say 5 to 7. Okay. Because if you say the reverse, where you're like, hey, I could get out in 1 to 3 and you get out 5 to 7, well, you just burned that bridge. Okay. So remember, this is one side of the equation, but then also we got to learn about conversing and strategy when raising private capital.
Absolutely. Absolutely. True. Um,
Good
so
stuff,
yeah,
Susanna. Great stuff.
everything is computed here for you. So what we're gonna do going forward, Joe, is we can actually jump on a LoopNet or a CREIC, or maybe next time we let one of our students bring a deal and we'll have a flyer or some preliminary information we can plug in here. And if we don't, I'll show you how to just make some assumptions, right? Because you don't know if you're going to offer on something until you kind of think to yourself, if you know the area and you go, well, leases should be more close to 2000, but they're closer to 1800, there's some room, let's plug it in. And then based on this analysis, you can make the decision, like, I'd like to go after this. Maybe I'll throw in an LOI or an offer. Once you get your due diligence, you come back to the spreadsheet and adjust all your blue numbers. Now you have real numbers. Now you're ready to talk to lenders. Now you're ready to talk to investors. Now you're ready to talk to preferred equity potentially, or mezzanine financing. So I hope this makes
100%.
sense. I know it seems overwhelming, but it really isn't. There's just a few little blue lines here that you put in, and then everything else is computed for you.
Oh, this is great, Susanna. And just remember when you're out there, guys, listen, listen, listen. What is the seller's motivation? Because remember what I said, maybe from the challenge you might have remembered, sometimes deals aren't found, they're created. Okay, so maybe the seller doesn't need the money right away. And so that would be a potential seller carry back. And so that'll really change up this spreadsheet big time. You won't have to raise as much in private capital. That 90% that you were looking on the sheet, some of it could be seller carry, maybe 10 to 20%. Okay. And so that's where it gets really, really juicy when the seller does a seller carryback.
Absolutely. But we could potentially just jump on LoopNet and look at deals that are out there, and we can enter them in here.
Sure,
Or
sure.
encourage
Um,
encourage our students to bring us deals that are on the market. It's not necessary that we're looking to purchase them, but let's just start practicing looking at how to compute the NOI. Is the cap rate, within what's customary in that market and that submarket? Is the IRR enough to maybe potentially bring in investors? And even if you don't bring in investors, you still need to get pretty similar return on your money, right? So,
Absolutely. And I got to add too, guys, I hope you're going through the master class because you're going to pick a market. As a matter of fact, I would say pick two markets. One will be a practice market. Okay, so as you bring these deals, this is a market you will never go, or maybe you might want a vacation, and then you definitely want to look at deals in your backyard. Okay, but I wouldn't recommend if you're brand new talking to brokers just yet in your backyard. I would start with the outer market, a practice market, or maybe the vacation market. You eventually want to buy property and vacation too. So pick two markets and then let's start looking at deals over and over. And the more you start to see this and understand it, this is going to go by so quick, but the magic is right here.
yeah. So if you look at the 6 pillars that we talked about, right, of what you need to answer. So this one again, so multifamily is very, very popular because it's probably one of the easiest property types to forced appreciate. Very easy to increase rents because most people are going to be at a max, 1 year lease, but potentially maybe not even that. A lot of them may be month to month. So from an industry standpoint, like, in the case where I showed that one deal, that seller just hired a management company. They're out of state and they're kind of underperforming the market. And so they're kind of over it. They just, want to now invest in a different state, maybe closer to home or somewhere where they know a better management company. So that creates an opportunity. And these deals happen every day. But the NOI we calculated, but it's also typically going to be presenting to you on the flyer or the OM or on LoopNet or CREIC or wherever you're looking, because it's going to give you the cap rate. So we computed the cash flow. We know the cash flow was going to be around 1.6 million a year starting in year one pro forma. Cap rate was given to us, but also computed once we entered the individual expenses and we know the purchase price. Now, financing options, okay, we're going to reserve that for next time because we're not going to have time to go through all that. But if you know the NOI and you know kind of the number of units and is it a multifamily garden style, all that, we can create a matrix of financing options within just a few minutes. And we did this actually with Mike the other day on the call. And in minutes, you have 5 or 6 financing options that are at the lowest rate. On these bigger deals, though, but just know that once the bigger you go, the more limited your options are, but they're really like the best financing options. So this was an agency deal, probably either a Fannie or a Freddie. And then buyer profile for multifamily is just somebody who wants to create the cash flow, right? And either share it with investors or just add to their own passive income. Remember, this would be very different if, for example, like this other deal that I'm doing right now, it's a company that manufactures medical devices. So they're buying a building, a commercial building, and they're going to do light manufacturing / warehouse. That's important because now when you're presenting the deal to the bank, you need to provide some context about the specific industry. And within that industry, how is this client and the manufacturing of medical devices, how does that fit in? What's the NAICS code? And that's going to affect your financing options. An industry use case, so what sectors is property serving and what's driving demand there. So lots of kind of market data available also with either, small investment banks, large investment banks that you want to add to your write-up.
Absolutely. And what I said earlier, guys, the feasibility study is huge. I was helping out one of my clients. They had land, probably like 10 or 15 acres. And she's like, Joe, should I build some storage units here? I'm like, do a feasibility study. Is there a demand? Because you don't want to buy something or build something and there's no demand. A good feasibility company will do that for you and also will help you figure out the market rents. So it's really, really important. And sometimes these feasibility studies, guys, will be about 5,000 or more. And so that's where your money out of pocket, this is your skin in the deal to justify like, hey, I'm doing what I need to do to figure out if this is a deal. I'm not just playing with your money. And so, like, that is some value that you're going to bring to the table. And if the demand's there, especially if you know it's in the path of progress, it's a little more rural, but you already see a Walmart going in, these big boxes, Home Depot going in, and that might be a place to go. I have several people in Texas that I coach and are affiliated with. A lot of people are moving out of Texas, going into Arkansas. Why? Because Texas is becoming more like a San Diego, or that's a little exaggerated, but it's getting more crowded. And so they're getting out of there, going to Bentonville. And so that would be an area to potentially consider to path of progress where you want to buy.
Absolutely. And then a lot of times it could go the other way, Joe. So you do a feasibility study and it turns out that there's actually, 6 storage units that were already scheduled to either go up or maybe they're already in the area or maybe the population does not support another storage unit. So how much time and money are you going to save by knowing that information?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we are going to wrap it up in a few more minutes. Anybody have any questions? Put it in the chat. You guys are awfully quiet today, but that's okay. Uh, we're covering a lot of ground and it is heavy material. So make sure you drink your coffee next time. If you're watching this video, I probably should have warned you, do that in the beginning is drink your coffee because if you're like me, man, numbers make my eyes kind of flap sometimes. But this is why commercial real estate is definitely a team sport. When you got a superstar like Susanna who just loves, loves, loves the numbers more so than you, I mean, this is why commercial real estate teamwork makes the dream work. Find your partners, find your team, or lean in on either one of us to help you get that deal across the finish line.
And also, as we do more of these sessions, like within 3 months, you guys are going to be pros. Like that spreadsheet is going to be your best friend. You're going to know exactly where to go. You're going to know which formulas you want to look at first. And, it, practice makes perfect. Like Joe says, I love numbers. Honestly, I didn't start out loving the numbers, but you start using it because it's just a part of commercial real estate and it becomes second nature. And truthfully, all the finance guys that are graduating right now, some of them are going into real estate, but any other industry that they go to, those calculations are a lot more complex and complicated and a lot more calculus. And you can do probably 90% of it just by hand, literally, right? These are simple multiplications and divisions, with the exception of, IRR, but
Right.
and amortization tables and things like that. But don't let that
Man,
intimidate you. We're here to hold your hand.
you got it. You got it. So it doesn't look like we have any questions here in the chat, Susanna. Great job as always, and we'll see you guys on the next training.
See ya.